Well, we used to live in Binondo until there was a fire, and then we moved to Pasay. We lived there for some years before my father was able to buy a lot in Makati, and we moved there. It was all studies and going home and going to school. There's nothing else because we weren't allowed to go out very much. So our mother tutored us. She brought up our discipline, and I guess from our father, we got naman yung entrepreneurialism. Oh, our dad did not come home that much because he was always out doing deals, no? But in a way, that was made up for because our mother was tutoring us at home. But we would hear stories about what our dad did. So that kind of inspired us, and it seemed to us at that time amazing kung what he was doing. I think most children when they're young, there's not really, the dreams are fantasies. Yung mga superpowers at ganyan, hindi naman katotohanan yan. But later on, in our case, when you enter high school, then you want to be good at what you're doing. You want to be known. So I played tennis, we did these things. There was no thought of business very much. In fact, when our father made us go to work in the business in high school, we used to go to the factory. We did not like it. We kind of resented having to spend all our time in summers. We worked in the factory floor and in the laboratory. So I was able to find that the high school, even in high school, what we learned in chemistry was useful because we changed the formulations and gave alternative chemicals, which I kind of like to read. So nagagamit ko yung mga technical, I was able to use the technical aspects. We worked on the factory floor. In textiles, it's dirty, it's smelly, it's noisy. The equipments are very large because there's a lot of chemicals. So we didn't enjoy it that much. We were working mostly with the workers, so we weren't in a social group na, we could go out with that much. But it helped us learn to be with all kinds of people, and we became friends with the people on the ground, and we understand their concerns. But eventually, we realized that helped train us on so many of the basic skills in business. So this was very helpful later on. Along the way, we met a lot of contacts, potential suppliers, potential customers, how they told us stories of how they did business. So from my dad, we learned how to do something different from what the schools teach us. The schools teach us to do a lot of analysis. We learned how to take a bet, when to make the jump, because the school generally tells you how to be very careful as a manager. But as a businessman, you jump in. When there's a mistake, then you learn how you're going to correct those mistakes and evolve the business. It's not trying to perfect it at the time you enter. You develop skills. In Tagalog, they call it discarte. So if you have discarte, you know that when you meet a problem, you'll solve it. So we learn to bet. We learn how to use leverage. We learn the importance of dealing with people, give and take. Because there's a tendency of people who haven't built the business to be overly strict or overly lax. You have to know how to control the business and relationship. So we learned these things from our dad. Aside from, of course, we saw how one business grows into another just by relationship. So this is the way we grew our businesses also eventually. Actually, my dad did not want me to study in the US. They wanted us to go into the business directly. But I was able to, applying on my own, I was able to get into Wharton, which is a known school. So in the end, he agreed to let us study there. There, I felt I learned a lot in terms of systems, technologies, strategies from the Western viewpoint. No? So coming back, we were able to use that in the enterprise and factories. We were able to make it efficient. We were able to close the things that were not doing well, manage the organization and how to develop talent, give incentives, things like that. But on the other hand, I found that there I was successful with my siblings in running the business and making them very efficient. We became the largest textile and garments group in the country. Pero starting businesses, we were not so successful immediately because you have to learn different skills. That's not taught in school. So you have to learn how to read people, how to take a bet, how to tier your decisions. And these are things that I eventually realized we learned from our dad. So from that grew our other businesses. So from there, my first business of my own came from trading the waste because I read from the magazines. there's gold in garbage. So they said, oh, people could sell garbage. So I was looking around. At that time, there was a financial crisis, so people cannot import. So what we did is we took our contacts in our factory. The yarn that used to be thrown away, we sold to furniture stores. They put it in the furnitures. The cardboards that are used for the fabrics, when they're imported, they can be used several times. So we resold them. We bought them and we resold them. So that was our first business with our brother. And from one business, all the other businesses grew, no? Marie France was sort of an accidental business. My dad then was already in mining, banking, textiles, garments, restaurants. So he had grown. So to us, he was like a god. We are amazed at how many enterprises he was able to start, no? But that didn't mean it was making money. Even though they were losing money, he just stuck with them until they made money. So it taught us that some businesses, you cannot make money immediately. Some of them took 10 years before they turned around. But eventually, we turned them all around, no? Itong Marie France they were renting one of our buildings, one of the units, and they couldn't understand, they couldn't get along with the government and the workers here because they didn't understand. So when they were about to leave, one of our managers, Mr. Renato Reyes, he invited them to talk to my dad about doing the business together, and they agreed. And it became a very successful, a very good partnership, no? So instead of leaving the country, it's grown to this business. And Mr. Reyes, which is one of the characteristics of my dad, when the employees bring a new business in and it's successful, we make them our partners. So he's not our employee now, he's our partner in this business. And there were many struggles because earlier, when my dad started out, he didn't have the capital. He was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was a retailer. And so he had to borrow a lot of money. And so whenever a crisis came, sometimes we were bankrupt. So because of those bankruptcies, we learned how to cut costs very much to the minimum. We learned how to control costs, look for the best suppliers, get credit, and so on. But because of that uncertainty, it was also good in a sense that during those times, we had family problems and we also had financial problems. I thought that we might go bankrupt. So even from grade school, I was preparing to be on our own. And because of that, I worked harder, I studied harder, I studied the law, I studied finance. Even in high school, I was studying technology. And so that became very useful later on. These struggles when you find out that people will not pay you or other people will betray you, they will break their contracts. You learn about human nature and you learn how to read people better. If you don't read them correctly, you'll make mistakes. So early on, also when I started our own businesses, yung una when I talked about trading the waste products, that's a trading business, that's very low risk. When you do a actual operating business, you have to take care of payrolls, you have to take care of taxes and so on. So these things we learned to manage because of the problems we had earlier. And it became very useful. And once you have successful one business that's running, then it keeps growing into other businesses of similar type. Unfortunately, he passed away early. But from that, all of our siblings, I can say that all of us went into different businesses because from the textiles, we went into garments and built different garment brands. No? We had Jag, Lee, Tribal, Von Dutch, and so on. And we went into food. There's Kenny Rogers, Seattle's Coffee. When we separated between the siblings, because there was a disagreements among the siblings, my part of the magkakapatid siblings got Marie France Group. And since then, we diversified into housing, technology, consumer products. Then we do the Glutacy soaps and lotions, Moringa, which advertises with the Kramer Kids and ganon, no? So we keep expanding everyone is successful. So even though there was a dispute, actually we're doing business again together, no? And we learned that, even if you have disagreements, you can still do business and you can still do many things together. So it's unlike another point of view sometimes that some people feel if you have a disagreement with someone, then you cut everything. Itong the Chinese Filipino community is a very efficient information community. So they know if you're doing well or not. When they found that after our dad passed away, there was a time some of the banks tried to foreclose on us. So that was another very difficult 2 or 3 years that many of the banks and even friends tried to foreclose. But some other friends naman were quite supportive. No? But after about 2 years, when they saw the businesses did not collapse when my dad died, and they saw our businesses growing and gaining market share, they actually came back and gave us additional credit lines. And so we were able to grow. That's how we were able to grow from garments into additional brands, into food, into technology and other things. No? So one is the banking lines. The other is the information and relationships. They give you tips on what to do, who to sell to, who to be careful of, things like that. So the community is very supportive. Actually, it's natural for the Chinese Filipinos to help each other that way. But the Filipinos who grow, it's the same thing because they don't care if you're Chinese, Filipino, Indian, whatever. The key thing is you know how to run your business and you pay your debts, and that's all they care. It's not really meant to be just Chinese Filipinos. So a lot of our Filipino friends, we also support, and Filipino, foreigner, whatever, as long as you can deliver your goods on time, on specs, and you pay your debts, people will support you, especially today. Not only will they support you with debts, they will make bets together with you. No? The difference, of course, is if they invest with you, they share with the profits, whereas if they lend to you, it's just the interest that you get. I think the secrets to success are, most of them are not secrets because so many people have talked about it. You have to understand, you have to be able to, first, working hard is just the beginning. If working hard problema na sa'yo, don't go into business. No? Unless you're brilliant. If you are brilliant, then you can work smart instead of working very hard. The relationships with people is very important because they will choose you. The suppliers and customers will choose to deal with you instead of someone else, and they will give you more favorable terms. If you lack expertise, there are franchises. You can learn from the best in YouTube, in Google. You can learn about any topic. You can learn from the best. So if you're a young person, as long as you're willing to work hard and you're smart about it, because the other thing is, when you're young, sometimes you feel you're so smart, or you think you know it, or you feel you just want to do it and you just jump and do it. The best thing to do is to practice first on a small scale with someone else's money. That means you work with someone and you watch how they do it, or you are assistant to somebody, or you watch from afar, and then you learn, you get relationships, you immerse yourself. You have to immerse yourself. Don't spend all your time with people of your own age because they have very little to teach you. You spend time with people who are older than you and those who have been successful. You don't spend time with people who have not been successful. Of course, everybody wants to be happy, but you have to be fair also, otherwise it's not sustainable. If what's making you happy is unfair to others, it's not sustainable. And as a person, for you to, if you're successful or not, can be measured if when you're not around anymore, are people going to say, he put it in 4 words, Yoni Tsanhao, which means having you is great. It's great to have you. So if your friends, when you die or you're not there, they say it was great to have that person, then you know you're successful. If your friend said, oh, it's a good thing he's gone, or then you didn't live such a good life. No? And I'd like my children and the people if everyone thinks that way, then there's a place for everyone in the world.